Hey, happy Sunday, everybody. Thanks for joining us once again. We have 7 or 6 submissions this week, so I'm glad we got some in this week. If you want me to submit or if you want me to analyze your swing, submit them to me, info@liongolfacademy.com, face on down the line. And obviously, give me as much history as you can, injuries, what your current ball flight is, what you're looking for, and we'll do our best to diagnose you. And let's take a look who is here right away. Let's see. Dang it, my back is about out too. Thank you for your generous offer. I'll be watching. Perfect. Welcome, half in the bag. I assume you are getting diagnosed today. If not, welcome. Hey, everyone. Thanks for that's me. Practicing drills I've learned from you. Hey, LJ. Yes, we got you going today. I took a brief look before I did my little order, and I think the theme of today is definitely setup. I think a lot of these cause and effects are based by everybody's setup. So it's going to be interesting to see. And go Arizona, beat Oregon onto the Sweet 16. March Madness. I haven't seen one shot of March Madness, but all right, let's get started. And if anybody ever has any questions at any time, just let me know. Let me take some of this stuff off here. We don't need this one. All right. So this first submission is actually a resubmission. The one on the right side is the older one, and that was sent to us about a year ago. So this is a long time coming. Let me read this here. His name is Nick. My name is Nick. Attached is my swing submission. This is a 6-iron from my makeshift home setup. For reference, I actually sent you a video last year, and he included the reference, so that's great. I just downloaded his old swing on the right side so we can kind of look and compare. Since then, I've weakened my grip and really worked on my inside takeaway. One of the suggestions I made about a year ago was that very steep motion, and he had to rely on a lot of hand manipulation at impact, but we'll take a look at what's going on today. These changes ruined my swing for months. I had the shanks and I was losing balls high and right. Now that I've figured it out, I'm actually scoring better and hitting my woods and long irons much better, so I think it paid off. Yes, specifically if you have a swing that is built from yourself, if you didn't have any guidance, which is most of us, we just go out there and hit golf balls and you develop habits. And the problem with that is when you change those habits now, it's going to reset your whole swing and you hit them horribly. But you just got to grind out just like he did. And I'm glad it worked through on the other side. So hopefully you're on. If not, you can watch the replay later. But let's just take a look. And my screen's going to be on this side. So I'll move things around a little bit. So let's go back to the beginning. And let's draw some basic lines to take a look. Make sure they're synced up. All right. So today, I think just when I uploaded these videos, I took a brief look at them. And a lot of this has to do with setup. So it's a good video to watch and to show you how setup can help you make the changes necessary to your swing without really changing your swing much. Let's see. Hey there, I just wanted to ask, can early extension be caused by lack of strength of the posterior chain, or is it completely mechanical? Also, does it need to be fixed? Is early extension that bad? No, nothing. Early extension isn't bad if you can repeat it. A lot of good players had some early extension. Greg Norman had an early extension. Jack Nicklaus had an early extension. It just depends on, can you do it routinely, and your misses. Your misses are the biggest thing. If you miss a banana ball and pull left and it's costing you, 4 or 5 shots around, yes, okay, now you might have to, limit that loss. It might not be always perfect, but no, you don't have to. And as far as the reasons for the early extension, I've seen something as simple as a ball position being played too far back, where you shift your weight left and you have to throw your hands too soon. And we actually have a submission today where that does occur. So stick with it. We'll kind of get to that. Also, weight distribution, setting up too much on your toes or your heels, and then you're fighting to stay neutral because your body's always going to find that neutral position. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an in-swing principle. I think most of these are pre-swing principles when you're getting ready to hit the golf ball. Yes, we got Barney Purple up there for the plain lines. Let's go with our spine angle line in Ivan Red. And we can see some changes in the setup already. I do think that this setup is still a little bit too close, and it does cause some issues. And if you want to know how to look at where your setup is, you basically just draw these lines here, and then you take your arches of the heel straight to the sky. Now, this one's slightly close. We're going to split the difference, and we're going to go off the left foot. So you can see how that center point is falling back. Now, this could help, this could hurt, but it all depends on your individual cause and effect. And we see the old one had a slightly better setup. So you can see the new one is not as over. The feet aren't as under as the older setup. So I almost prefer the older setup. But you'll see as you take that club back, there's a big difference there. So the one on the left side, you can see how the hands stay on that lower plane line much better. So this is a really good improvement. You can see that club face is on that lower plane line. Hands are pretty on that point. The older swing on the right side, you can see the hands really went up and away, and then it required some rerouting. But this new top position, you can see it's just neurological system. Even though he took the club lower to begin with, if you look at that picture there, they're still both above that secondary plane line. Now, obviously, the new one on the left side is closer to that secondary plane line, but this is that neurological habit that you can't really get rid of. So I don't think we'll ever get him to that secondary plane line, nor should we try to. The biggest change for him is if you take a look at, we're going to draw this in green. You take a look at where the butt of the club is related to his setup versus the old one. So you see how that green line on the old one, it was on the front side of his centeredness, where the new one, it's actually behind his centeredness. So that's a big change for him, because now there's very little rerouting that he has to do, even though there's that neurological system that he still has to deal with. And we do a pretty good job of turning and tilting. The old one, we saw a little bit of raise of that left shoulder. Now we start to see that left shoulder staying down better. So that initial takeaway really helped him, get his turn and tilt corrected. And as we start to go in that transition now, we can see here that if we do our triangle check, that arm goes right down where it should. And you see that green line and the top purple line are kind of forming our triangle check, and it goes right in the middle of it. So that's really good. The old one, we could see we had to do a pretty significant drop and then rotate, and he would get a little bit flippy, and he would also have an extreme amount of tilt. So let's clear up these lines and go right down into that impact position. So you can see just past impact here, big change. And this is a big one, specifically as you get a little bit older. In orange, Trump orange, we're going to look at that shoulder tilt versus that shoulder tilt. So when you are having this big compensation, one of the ways to get your hands to dip down quick is to also increase that tilt. So you might have to pull your hands down and increase the tilt to accentuate that, to help you get in that impact zone. So look at the one on the right side. There's a lot of compression on this lower body, the lower back here, where the one on the left side is not as compressed. So we definitely see a lot of improvement. So really good job of sticking through it. And this is just, your dividends are paying off right now. And even when we finish, look at how much straighter and lower that release point is versus here. It's up and away. So the one on the right side might have been, almost a good driver swing, but you can't really do it with an iron because you need to compress the golf ball. So a lot of good things here. Where I would go with this one is, if anything, I'm not going to sit here and say you got to keep changing stuff, but if you want to get a little bit more in detail, is just your posture. So lower plane line and then your spine angle line. I would just work on pulling those heels slightly back so they're just supporting that centeredness right where that X meets. So your heels, your feet need to be pulled back so it gets more underneath you. Let me see here. I don't miss much. I'm a fairly straight hitter, but I lose a lot of power. That's what I feel like. On this video, I can see my lower back compressing because I can maintain my upper body tilt. Are you talking about the new swing? I think you run out of a little bit of real estate as you strike the golf ball. Specifically here, you can see you're setting up here, and then watch your first part of your takeaway on the left side. So you kind of sit back in your heels even more. So now all of a sudden that center is almost, off your front part of your hip. You want it to at least support the hip. So if we redraw the line here, since you did that little bit of a motion there, we can show you the centeredness of your heels straight up to the sky. Look how far forward it is of your hips, and your hips want to find the center in your swing, and they're going to find the center of your feet. So I think just give yourself a little bit more room. Don't change anything. Don't change your swing. Just back up a little bit with your feet, not your whole body. So just pull the feet more under your hips. That'll give you some more clearance room, and you could probably rotate a little bit more so you're not crashing into yourself. Thinking a little bit of that rotation will definitely help you. So I think we have your face on too. Let me pull up your face on. I think you sent them in both. Yeah. So let's check your face on real quick. Let's zoom in. All right. And let's see what happens in the face on. Okay, yeah, so there's a little bit of that sway to the right. So the hip sway moves over to the right. Right there, see a little bumping there? but it doesn't matter really as long as you can compensate on the way back. So you do sway back into it. There's a little bit of loss of shaft angle before you hit it, but that's a pretty significant forward press. Club face looks slightly open at this point, and then we have to kind of close our gap. So I would say, if you want to work on that releasing of the angle a little bit too soon, I'd say it's about one frame of where it needs to be. So if we go to impact, let's go right there. Let's back up a frame. So if you can see here, this is probably where your hands need to be at impact. So there's your tilting, and your centeredness of the tilt should be matching up to there, and that's where you should be striking it. So your hands are just one frame behind. Now, it could be because when you are standing too close and you're trying to turn and there's not enough room, that your hands need to start to activate sooner to allow you the makeup of the lack of turn. So that spacing could definitely help this through, because now you can actually get that right side to turn through. So I hope that makes sense. But overall, I think it's a really big change for you. I think you did a great job of sticking through it. I know it's probably a pain, and I'm proud of you. Let's take a look. No, that's not me. Oh, okay. Well, if he's going to watch this later, he'll know what we're talking about. But Van, are you talking about you? Do I have your swing, or you just talking about the swing in general? Tony, it's as simple as trying to keep your back to the target a little longer to help from running out of real estate. Not necessarily, because that could affect your sequencing. Because if now all of a sudden, let's say you keep your back a little close to the target. Now, are you talking about starting with downswing with the hips more and keeping the back facing the target? That could help you with the sequencing. If you're talking about keeping your back towards the target as you reconnect your hands, now your sequencing could be a little bit off. So it's a fairly tough question to answer, just because it is so individual. You'd have to look at your swing and see what that's all about. The swing in general is, I was about to send my swing, but I didn't have face on. Okay, no problem, Van. Do me a favor, send it in to me. I get these all the time. I'll put it in the list, and we'll get it for next Sunday. So, Tom, hopefully that made some sort of sense without confusing you more. If you need more clarification, let me know. So, Nick, excuse me. Yeah, Nick, hope that helped you. Let's see who is next. We have Shawn. All right, Shawn, I came across your YouTube channel a few days ago, and I've watched dozens of your videos. Thank you for that. I'm a 61-year-old golfer who's getting older and hitting it shorter. I have always been told I hang back on the downswing and use my hands and wrist too much instead of using my lead side leg to power my swing. I'm trying to feel like I push off my left foot more and use the ground. Trying to push off my left foot more. I would love to hear your analysis and recommendations. Left foot. Not sure if you're talking about the top of the swing, pushing off the left foot. Maybe he meant right foot. Maybe he meant our view. If you're on, hopefully you can enlighten me. Okay. Yeah, definitely a little bit of that chicken wing going on there. All right, let's look at the down the line. Okay, yeah, same thing here. All right. So you'd have to see how much your range of motion is. I don't know if you have any physical limitations that you have, or if you're tight in any areas, but let's take a look at the lower plane lines, upper plane lines, back brace line, and let's see the action here. Yeah, okay. So it definitely looks like a tight body. So this is just a sign of somebody that looks fairly tight. And one of the things you see here is this setup might not be encouraging your abilities now. Because if you take a look at this part of the takeaway, your left shoulder is raising out of its tilt, out of its posture. So I'm going to draw this in red. So see how that left shoulder is kicking up? That's usually a sign that we're not as flexible on the left side as we need to be to maintain that posture with the tilt relationship. That tilting is very important. And if you can't, you might have to adjust your setup to allow that position to occur. So if that's your natural position at the top, you need to start with that tilt relative. So your spine angle should be a little bit more higher when you start to swing, so you don't have this up and down motion. Let's see what happens on the way down. Do you go back down? So there's a little bit of downward trend, but you're stuck in that red spine angle, and there's lack of rotation. So that could definitely mess with your footwork Instead of turning, we're doing more up and down, and that can start to shift the footwork or the centeredness to your heels and your toes instead of just keeping it in one place and rotating through. So this one is, I would say, without knowing your history, I don't know your history. That's the tough thing, is if you're not able to turn and tilt relative to that turn, either you can start to stretch that left side and do stretching exercises. That back of your hamstrings might be tight too. As you get older, you're sitting a little bit more, so your hamstrings start to adapt to the seat. Simple hamstring stretches can really, really help you maintain your posture. Until then, from this side, we'll look at the other side too. Until then, we'll take a look at your posture and see how this one is. This looks a little front loaded to me. So there's the center, and there's the spine angle. Yeah, so look at your centeredness. Your centeredness of your swing is in this circle here, and your feet and your hips are supporting so far back that so much of the weight is on your toes, and it's kind of hard to turn and stay tilted when things are stuck on their toes. So you might be trying to get some weighting to the heels, but even there, you could look at the heels of your feet. They're still up in the air. You get to that secondary plane line, but look at how much more ahead of that plane line. Let me try here. So that yellow, so your club is staying centered to your setup, but your centeredness is too far forward based on where it should be, if that makes sense. So for you specifically here, I mean, look at how much raise you get. You need to be in that position when you start to swing. So maybe a little bit closer so you're not so toe heavy, to allow your shoulders to tilt relative to that. And that's going to bring your arm closer. That's a horrible line, by the way. Let's try and get it 90 degrees. That's going to get your arm a little bit closer this way because you'll be flattening out your shoulders relative to your spine. And when you do that, your arms will also flatten out too. And now you can probably come more from the inside, because if you take a look at your first move on the way down, that's already moving out. And now you have a pretty steep angle. And all you have left at this point, because you can't turn because the weight's so stuck, that you have to get your hands involved and look at that impact. So if I clear these lines up, there's very little turn as you strike the golf ball. And then your hands have to just make up for the rest of it. So this just looks like, to me, a very tight body in terms of the hamstrings, the left side, anything you do to stretch them out, even if it's once a day before you go to bed after you brush your teeth, just do some hamstring stuff. Let me see this. Tony, can you move the picture of your face? Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't know that. I meant to do it for, there you go. Sorry about that, guys. I meant to do that for the split screen. Thanks, Steven. Please move your video box. Yep, sorry about that. You can't see. Sorry about that. So hopefully you guys get the gist of it without my head reading right in the face. How can I send you my swing? You send it to info@liongolfacademy.com. Face on down the line. Send me as much info as you can. The more info you can give me, the better job I can do for you. And plus, the better people watching can just learn about cause and effect. If you just send me a video with no descriptions, it's probably not going to make it on here, because I want to make the best use of everybody's time. So hopefully that makes sense. So does anybody need me to redo any of that stuff that I talked about? If you do, let me know. But let's just take a look at his face on to see that chicken wing in action, because he gets trapped. So first of all, from here, we have a lot of wrist angle. And this could be just a optical illusion, but that is a lot. It's okay. You get some forward press. It's not really natural forward press. And the reason I say that is, let's take a look at where your centeredness is when you start up related to your ball. So you're saying we're going to go right from that zipper, pull it straight down. So it's ahead of the golf ball, which is good. And then you take a look at this forward press. Let's go with Barney Purple. And then you take a look at your shoulder tilting. Now, obviously, the right shoulder is going to be more down than the left, and the center of those tilt. So your hands are a little bit back of where that tilt is. So it just, for me, when I'm dealing with students, I'm just looking to simplify your setup, because once you simplify your setup, where you don't have to worry about carrying too many angles on, and specifically if you have lack of rotation, now you're in trouble. Now it's just like a game of chances, like lottery. You just swing and you hit it good, or you swing and you miss it. So to create consistency, you want to tighten up the setup. I'm a huge setup guy. You set up correctly, your body will adapt and take your natural motion to a different level. So what I'm looking for is maybe not as much tilting, but that could also become for the ball position. So let's say you carry this, that you start the same way. So we go from the top of the swing, you see the weight distribution to the right side. You see you do a good job of turning as much as you can. There's a little bit of the arm motion to get your club back to that parallel. Remember, club is related to your turn. So you basically want that club to be there. You don't need all this excess motion with your wrist and hands. And then from here, the sequencing should be driving with the lower body. I don't see much drive with the lower body because you're so forward pressed and on that left side already. If you drive even more, you're going to have to throw your hands even more. But saying so, you can see at impact, you return to where it was, but because you carried that forward press over, you can't, you have to release it sooner, because if you don't, you're going to be topping the golf ball. You're going to be making some severe contact issues. So you have to throw the hands to make up for that. So at impact, you want less tilting at impact with an iron. Like, you don't need all this with an iron, because the more you tilt, the more you have to hold your angles. And if you don't hold them enough with that ball position, it's relative to that tilt, you're going to have to let go. And that's usually when the chicken wing forms. So for this one, without knowing your body, I'm going to just tell you, set up correctly based on that first thing I showed you. And then you want to work on keeping your arm motion a little bit shorter than what you're doing, and just get used to turning a little bit more on the way back as well, and that tilt relationship. And you can really get to the next level with you by strengthening or elongating your hamstrings. So hamstrings, I think, are the killer in this swing, but I hope that does help you. And I promise you, you'll probably see less flipping if you can hold your spine angle and keep your shoulder tilt relative, because it's just going to come more from the inside. And when it comes from the inside, you can hold that angle a little bit longer while you turn and tilt on the way through. But if it comes from the outside, you got to start throwing to get that club back out in front of you. So hope that helps you. Hope that made sense to you. Let me see what's up here. Okay, got them all there. All right, next up, let's clear this up. We've got Adam. Been playing golf for 30 years. Videos of me hitting an 8-iron. I seem to have a flippy release and inside takeaway. My miss is an overdraw or a push block out to the right. Because of my flip, let's play this. Because of my flip, I hit the ball extremely high, like 120 to 130 foot apex. I think this is Alex or Adam. As I could be playing for a long time, but my swing is DNA'd and I have a tendency to revert back to the swing. Yes. Hit the ball pretty far because I have a decent swing speed. With the drivers, about 103 to 110. I compensate by aiming a little right because I play for a draw. This can cause me to push it to the right. However, been working, sorry, this is all worded wrong. However, been working on having a more neutral takeaway. All right. Man, got to decipher some of these. All right, let's take a look. You're welcome, Comtel. I don't know if I'm doing a swing or I did one for you, but you're welcome. All right, let's take a look. This is a extreme tilt setup. All right, so we have somebody that muscles the golf ball through, so we can see how he can get that club head speed. There's a lot of muscle going on here. Let's see down the line. So very condensed setup, not a lot of room to work with. You can see those shoulders are really like hunched in. So it just looks very crammed in terms of the setup. Now, remember, just because it's crammed or because you do it doesn't mean it's not a good swing, but it's all about your misses. If you have a miss that's so big left and right that you can't control that miss, now you've got to address these compensations. So when you guys send me your videos, could you please let me know your misses, your tendencies to miss? When you do miss it, isn't an extreme miss where it takes, high scores and brings them into play, because that's really going to help to see if it's worth suggesting changes. But yeah, you can see that reroute there. So it's just not a lot of, I just see not a lot of room here, first of all. So let's draw that setup. We got a really hunched setup. Lower plane, upper plane. Arms are going in, back brace line. And let's check the arches of the heel straight up to the sky in Barney Purple. Now we're going to split the difference and go right about there. So it's a decent setup in terms of the centeredness, but you just look very crammed. and I can see you're aiming further right. I'm assuming it's for a purpose, or maybe you don't know you're aiming further right. But we can see that as you take that club back, it's just going along your foot line. Maybe it's slightly inside, but this club veers back over here, and that's, I'm not saying it's impossible to do this. We saw Raymond Floyd do it very well, but the odds are not in your favor. You would like this to be a little closer to that lower plane line. I'm talking about your club head over here, because if your club head is closer to that plane line, at least then you're going to be in the ballpark. But this requires some manipulations here. Get to that secondary plane line. Do we get there? We don't get up enough, but you can see you are deep enough. So it could be you felt you needed to get this motion to get your hands deep enough to your centeredness, which is fine. But this will cause a momentum where you have to go from severe in to wrap around and go out. But it might also be that wrap around, go out is because you have no room. As you strike that golf ball, you can see things are standing up and getting closer to that center. So if you take a look at your right hip joint right before you hit the golf ball, where's that right hip joint? We're going to draw a circle over it right there. So your right hip joint will always try to find the center of your setup. So we saw his setup here, and where's that right hip joint? So you would like your feet, specifically the arches of your feet, to support your right hip at setup so it can have a better chance of maintaining that position while you can now develop around that. Now, the problem with this is, let's say we were asking to change this, because this is such an ingrained motion, he's going to be like Nick, the first guy. He's going to hit it horribly. And the odds of him going through that to see the good shots come through, it's going to require a lot of dedication, patience, self-monitoring, making sure you don't regress back to what you used to do. It's a very tough task to do. So the earlier you can catch this stuff, the better you are to make your changes, specifically in the address. So then your natural motions can come on out. Now here he's an athlete for sure, because he's making this swing work. He's trying to stay in his posture. He's trying to stay in his spine angle, but it just looks very compressed. And it's all because of that setup. So you would like to try to at least get that setup a little bit tighter, or more spacing with your hands and arms, so you don't get so tight at impact. But let's take a look at the front right here. And let's take a look at this side of the setup, because this side of the setup also runs into some issues too. So if we take a look, we know he has a chicken wing. We're going to draw his tilting. So that's a lot of tilt for an iron. So his hands are at least connected to the tilt, but then he's got this exaggerated forward press. Let's draw this one in red, and let's zoom in a little bit so we can see those lines. So when you have this much separation between your tilt and your shaft, you've got to figure out a way to close this gap down by the time you get to the golf ball. Now, they don't have to match, because you want some forward press, but let's say he starts here. His sequencing is going to be off, because he can't really drive left at the target, because his ball position is going to shift so far back. So if you look at his golf ball position straight up to the sky, you can see it's in the center. But the problem is look how far on his right side it is. So if he gets any sort of sequencing going left, that ball position is going to shift. So it's going to be back here. So what does he have to do to hit the golf ball? He's either going to have to fall back. While his lower body's going left, he's going to have to fall back, like we see the guys that have four presses on tour. They have this accentuated fall back to carry that angle. Or if he shifts anything left, he's got to get those hands to go. And when the hands go, what has to break? The left arm has to break to allow the spacing for the hand, because now the club is going to extend too soon and you need space. So you pull the left arm up to create that space. So now you have a path with your hands are moving probably up as you strike the golf ball with an iron. And now it comes down to, did I scoop it enough in time? And it's just a lot of unnecessary things, unless you can hit 1,000 golf balls a day. And who knows, this might be his garage, which if it is, I'm in the wrong business. But let's take a look at how he is able to work with what he gives himself. So we see that shift, and he stalls out slightly. So we see the stalling of the shift, right? So the whole upper body can't quite get over like you see. So it gets a little bit over, but in relation to that golf ball, it's well ahead of that golf ball. But because of that excess tilt, he can't carry that same angle. So what has to go? Look at the hands. The hands have to go to help him out. And what do you see happening with the left arm? The left arm's providing room, because the left arm needs to get shorter. The only way to get shorter is that way. So this, chicken wings are caused either if you have a good setup where the ball position related to your tilt, it's lack of turn. But if you don't have your ball position related to your tilt and your forward press, you've got to get a chicken wing to hit the golf ball. So there's no point to cure the chicken wing because you drive yourself nuts, because the only way you can hit a golf ball good is by having a chicken wing. So, this is the whole cause and effect I'm just trying to give you guys to see. So here we go. We got Crimson. I assume this is you, yeah? My miss is just 10 to 15 yard overdraw. Or a 10-yard push. Looks pretty good. Error on the side of underswing. Just needs to come more from the inside. Start shoulders later. I don't know. I'm not a coach. That's your garage? Oh my goodness, man. When are we going to start filming in your house? This looks like I'm in the wrong business, man. That is just a beautiful garage. So you have the facility to use, which is great. And it seems like you take decent footage of yourself. So you really need to get your setup situated correctly, or at least promote more of what you want to do, which is a natural athletic motion. You seem very natural. So what you want to try and do is not have so much forward press. By doing that, let's say you can get your forward press. It's hard to do like stick figures, but we're going to try our best. So we'll keep the ball there. We have less forward press, right? Just over here. Then we have, by doing that, you're going to have less shoulder tilt. So your tilt's not going to be as much. And then the ball position, you need to shift, your feet over slightly like this. And now you can take a look. If you match things up, you're going to see your lines are going to be much tighter. So if you do this and this extension, look how much we've shortened that gap. Now you can actually carry over a natural forward press. This is going to be your natural forward press. The only way you carry that angle over is by shifting your whole body left, your whole body now. So your setup needs to just accommodate your athletic ability. From the behind view, just back up again, back away from the golf ball so your arms aren't pulling into your body at setup, because now you run out of room, and that creates this move where you have to, almost lift your hands and roll like club head to create the room to get, behind you. And I can see why your misses are either a block or a overdraw, just because your path and your club face relationship is very hard to time when you have a chicken wing. So hopefully that helps you. Hopefully that helps everybody. If you have a chicken wing, what should you check? Check your ball position to your tilt, and then make sure you have adequate room to carry that angle over naturally. All right, next up, let's see here. Who do we have here? We have Zach. Currently bouncing between a 4 to 5 handicap. Let me play it. Let me zoom in. You guys need like a telescope to see that. All right, currently bouncing between a 4 to 5 handicap, and I've been playing for a little over a year. I have not had any formal lessons, and I've largely worked on my swing using mirrors in my garage and watching people much better than me in slow motion. I practice around 100 swings per day and play 3 to 4 times a week when there isn't snow on the ground. We don't have that problem here. I hit my irons and wedges consistently for the most part. The driver is another story. My irons fly mostly straight with a very slight 5 to 7 yard draw times. I'm a relatively long hitter with decent swing speed and played traditionally lofted clubs. However, lately my miss is hanging back on my right leg too long and topping the ball. Man, that sounds very familiar. It's quite embarrassing to have a great round going, and as someone lets you play through, you top it on a par 3 or have it fly over the back of the green. Wait a minute, that sounds like, did you let me play through? Because that's kind of what I do. I'm always looking to improve, but at this point, I would not want to make any huge sweeping changes to my swing and have to start to square one. I hear you. That's not a fun thing to decide to do. So let's just take a look at the swing. So if you can get to a 4 to 5 handicap, that means you're doing your compensations adequately, because handicaps are all about misses. It's not about your good shots. It's how well do you miss the ball. So just from the face on, we see that forward press, strong grip. He's probably learned to hold off some sort of release because of that. We'll have to look at your tilting relationship. Let's take a look at the down the line. I can't move it up, so we're stuck with this. Okay, same sort of thing as we just saw. Club face gets behind your plane. You do a pretty good job. At least we don't have a motion taking us back around. The club head is stuck behind you. right here. And we have to activate the hands to try and get it back out in front in the last ditch effort. So yeah, I can see that this one is a pretty timing oriented swing. So it probably requires you to hit 100 balls a day just to maintain it. If you're okay with that, just keep doing what you're doing. However, if you don't want to make any drastic changes, it's very hard because you have to get this club head. It's hard to see that blurriness, but let's back it up and see if I can see where it goes. So there's the club head there. We see the fluttering there. I don't see anything there. I see the fluttering there. So it kind of goes in this angle here. So that's very much below your plane. I feel for you because I used to suffer this exact same thing, and I'd loop it all the way around. All right. Setup is definitely toe-based. Looks like you have pretty long legs to your torso and arm ratio because that's set up. The shorter the arms get, the shorter this gapping gets. And the only way to get shorter is being more upright and lifting the hands up. But your hands look like they're natural. So I'm curious if you have longer torso, like longer legs. But your arms do a decent job of at least staying in that lower plane line. Weighting is going to take you back. Now, this is the one thing though. So, your body's always trying to find a way to stay balanced. So let me see if you can do this. Let's take a look at your setup. Okay, so arch of the heels, we're going to split the difference. There's the right and left. Yeah, hopefully this will open your eyes a little bit to everybody. Okay, so where are those two lines converging, where this plane and this tilt? We'll draw this in yellow. So you guys see how much toe heavy this is? That the hip is being pretty good supported by there, but that plane is pulling your weighting to your toes so much. The plane needs to be a little bit lower, but it's hard to tell because of your ratios. But let's take a look, because when you have so much weight stuck on this toe heaviness, like you can tell that a lot of this is this way. You see how your legs are like leaning this way. So you're definitely toe heavy here. To help you, what could happen too is to feel like you're maintaining your balance. We start to pull that club behind us over here to make up for some of this excess weight that's stuck over here. So it's going to be a challenge, because if you change your setup, you have to change the way that club moves now, because that club moving back helped you stay centered, because I don't see much shoulder tilt loss, which is good. So you maintain your shoulder tilting, but you do it because that club is pulling back to keep you centered. So it's almost like you need to do that to hit the golf ball. You get to that top plane line pretty well. As we come on down through, do we see some loss of posture? Yeah, we start to see a loss of posture there. So we see standing up. Let's draw it in green, or it's going to be in red. So you see a slight loss of posture. Back brace line, you can see how much it moves. So there's the back brace line as we come into it. So we're moving up. Man, it's not that much, actually. So we're moving up and in. Man, this is a tough one. Like, your swing is so reliant on that setup, but the compensations that swing is created by the setup can create some issues that you have. So, I hate to break it to you, but you can't fix one without the other. Like, you can't fix your setup without fixing the inside. It's going to be that club being laid off too soon. You can do small increments. So what I suggest you do is, feel the weight more in your heels just a little bit, like you're sitting back slightly. And then on the way back, your hands are still going to roll out of habit, but make them roll less. For every 2 or 3 inches that you sit back in your heels in terms of the centeredness, then try and eliminate as much roll by that amount. So just close that gap slowly. Don't do anything extreme, because your swing's going to fall apart. But slowly change your setup, and also slowly change that first move. You should be able to stay centered by changing that setup, which will require you not to stay centered by getting that club head behind you to get some of that weighting behind you. So I hope that makes sense. I don't want to dive too much into this, because, I think just by that, you can see your cause and effect. I recommend doing small changes. Do this for like 2 months. Since you like to do 100 swings a day, don't hit golf balls 100 times a day. do 99 practice swings and hit one ball. Like, do that type of, maybe not that exaggerated. Let's do 80 practice swings and 20 golf balls. Okay, so do 4-to-1 ratio. But set up your camera like you have there, record it, go and watch it, and then set up again, go and watch it, and then set up again. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Is this you, Golf Pro, Chen? Or is this somebody else? Body in hand, slightly disconnected, approaching impact, chicken wing, lifting, steering. Hey, that sounds like a song. We should make a song like that. So I hope that helps you, Zach. Let me know if you need any further advice in the comments below if you catch this later, or just email me. You know how to get a hold of me. So hope that helps you. All right, next up, let's zoom in here. Let's play it, and let's read his email. Oh, that is you. Okay. So let me know if that made sense, Chen, because I wanted to make some sense to you so I can leave and go to sleep in peace tonight. All right, next up, we have Jeremy. Could you take a look at my swing over the winter? I worked on my grip and takeaway. That seems to be going well, especially my grip. My misses are much less erratic. However, I've been golfing 20 years. 20? When you started like 2? And 2 things have always been present no matter what I've tried. First, the club looks all twisted and shut at the top in my backswing. Second, I straighten my right leg while I shallow the club. I'm constantly stuck. It doesn't feel anything like it looks. Can you please help me understand the cause and effect? All right. Let's take a look. Yep, I see that stuck. Let's see face on. And hopefully, Jeremy, if you're on, let me know so I can chat and ask you questions. Yeah, same thing. All right, so just to show you kind of what I'm looking at is we always go down to impact. We look at that tilt-turn relationship. So ideally, right before, like the frame before you strike it, that's where your hands should be fairly close to that impact line, or at least closer. You can see it's still stuck over that right side. So he's got a little manipulation. So it could be stuck, like he says. But then you have to look at why. So we see a lot of this weighting over the golf ball, which is ahead of the ball, which is fine. But with that golf ball position, if we draw that relative to his golf ball position to his body, look, it's on the right shoulder. So you definitely got to get your hands involved. And we see a scooping action of the release. So at impact, if it clearly lines up, see how it's kind of scooping under to try and create any sort of loft. Because if he carries that same angle down, that thing's going to be de-lofted so much, it's going to be hard to get the ball up in there. So we do see a right hand manipulation to try and help it out. Definitely athletic. I mean, you can definitely see some potential here. It does look just a little bit too many hitches with a lack of a better term here. So let's look at from the down line one more time here, now that we've seen that face on. So again, a little bit jammed at setup. Steep. Yeah, and then, okay. Yeah, so someone say, yeah, okay, I see. All right, let's take a look here and draw some lines. Lower plane is Gumby green. Back brace line. Let's draw that plane line in. We got to bring him out. This is a nice video to bring him out. Barney purple. All right, so let's look at the centeredness. Now, it could be centered. Looks very centered. So great job centering it. But you can tell it's too far inside, so meaning too close. So if you guys want to know how to do it, so the body is really centered, which is great. But if you take a look at the hands and the arms and how they hang, see how they're hanging inward? And when they hang inward, there's very little room to turn. Specifically, I've seen many things go wrong from here. I shouldn't say go wrong, but I see many things happen. I see people that lift their hands up and then turn. I see people that turn their shoulders and then lift their hands up. I see people that exaggerate that hip turn to help create room. So it's very dependent. I can't just say this will cause. It does many things. So let's take a look at what it does for him. So as we take that club up, the hands, because they can't really go around, right? We're not turning. So you see the hips, they don't turn. So with that lack of the hip turn, the arms can only go one way. They go up and out of that lower posture. At this point, he should be able to keep his hands on that lower plane line. However, to do so, he would have to accentuate his tilt. So if we take a look at that yellow line where his shoulders are, he's doing a really good job of turning and tilting around that body setup. But because it's too close, in order to get that hand lower on that plane line, he would have to have a tilting like this to make sure those hands stay down there. Now that's another really bad issue, because you don't want to have so much tilt that now all of a sudden you better find a way to untilt, and that creates a whole different game. So you can see his body is trying to do what it should do, but it's trying to also make accommodations for the setup. So we need to stand a little bit further away to allow the hands to hang down naturally, and then we can start to engage that lower body turn, because he saves the lower body turn. Right now he doesn't turn, his hands go back up, and then from here, we just clear up this line. Watch his hands. From there to there, they don't go up. They start to go level. But take a look at his hips. When the hands start to change direction, what happens to his hips? Now his hips are turning. So it's almost like he should be turning first, but he can't because of the way he's set up. So there's a little sequencing going on here. And now as a result, his hands get low and flatter to the plane, his secondary plane line, which is fine if you can find a way out of it. But look at that club head. That club head for some reason is closing down. Now I don't know if it's closing down from previous misses that he had, where his body just said, hey, or his hands just learned to, let me just close the club. Maybe it did it one time and it hit it good. So it started to learn, I got to get my club face closed for some reason at impact. It needs to be closed. But now all of a sudden we've got a disconnection issue and a club face very close. So look at that club face here related to his left forearm. So now we've got to, you can make this work if you provide the room to tilt and hold that release off. So I see a lot of really good long ball strikers close the club face at the top, because all they're doing is closing that club face up, and then by them turning and tilting a lot, they delay that release, and it actually starts to open the club face at impact, and then they hold it straighter longer. So that's why these guys and girls out there who can accentuate tilting use it to their advantage, but they need spacing. You definitely need to have more spacing to do this in. So as we come on down to impact, we can see our hands want to drop back down low, but what happens if we clear these lines up? There's no room. Like he can't turn and tilt. You can see he's stalled out with his lower body, so his hands now have to come into the game, and that's where we start to see that throwing and getting something on the golf ball. Now pair that with the setup on the face on, and we can see how the motion of him moving left gets that ball position so far in the back. He has to also flip the hands. So now we have to ask ourselves, what caused what? Was it the bad, or I shouldn't say bad, was it the setup that he had that created the swing, or was it the other way around? Was it the swing that created a setup? That's the question. I don't know, and he probably doesn't know. This is just the way his swing evolved. So you can't change one without the other. You can't change an in-swing principle without addressing that in-swing principle, because that in-swing principle is there because of your pre-swing principles. So you've got to give yourself some spacing. I hope that makes sense, JB. And your back is starting to get sore. Yes, I can see. I mean, it's just, as you get that, I see there's a lot of pressure on your body. You can see you're definitely a good athlete, and your body from this position is trying to do the right thing, but it's just too congested. So I think what you need to do is just pull the whole body back so you can get some spacing so your arms can hang naturally, right? So you can see how much you have to pull back. Don't change your angles. Don't change anything. You're setting up centered, which is great. You're just setting up centered, but too close. Once you get that back, now your in-swing change, get a little bit of the hip turn right away. That's going to help you get your depth, and then you can get your hands to go a little bit higher. So you're almost trying to reverse everything for you. Okay, so I don't want to confuse you too much. Now the face on, let's do this one. Let's see what the changes here in the face on. Just your setup now. We're not talking about your in-swing. Your only in-swing principle right now is get more turn with the hips immediately, which will help your hand path stay lower on that plane line, because your shoulders do a great job tilting. Once they get to the halfway point, feel like they go a little bit higher, right? And just work with that. Don't worry about the hands. Still let them be shut if they need to. Just expect some rope hooks, and that's okay. You need to start working with setup and then your first part of the move, and then send me an update. But from this face on, I would like to see a little less forward press. I'm not a fan of this specifically for us weekend warriors, because you look at the amount of tilting that you have. Your spine is going to want to return to this if you can maintain that tilt. Now, if you add any more tilt, which I believe you do, right, at impact, look at your tilting. So your tilting is way ahead. That's where your hands should be already. So they're just disconnecting. So we don't need as much tilt, because you do a good job of at least getting some sequencing of your weight distribution corrected. So just maybe move that ball slightly more forward. I know it doesn't make sense right now, but just forward to stop this tilting, to just get the shoulders to be slightly more level so you can line up things while you address standing further back. Alleviate yourself. Give yourself some room. So I hope that helps you, Gregory. Let me know. Let me see here. Oh, sorry, not Gregory, JB. Let the arms turn the body. That looks like my swing, using the shoulders at the start. Yes. If you, Jim Furyk, you take a look at Jim Furyk's backswing. He has, I don't know what his degrees are, but visually it looks like he has like 10 degrees of turn with his hips. But he is so flexible, he can get that X factor, and he uses it correctly. So if you have the body ability, go ahead. And who knows, he might have that body ability, but he can't prove it because he's running out of real estate. So good pickup on that. Thank you, Justin. I really appreciate that. The ball looks a bit close to me. Yes. So hopefully everybody can see the importance of giving yourself a good setup, and then let your natural tendencies take over from that setup. But you can't fix one without the other. So hopefully that helps you, JB. Let me know if you need anything else. All right. Larry. Big Larry. I see you're on, Larry. Let's take a look at Larry. Now, Larry has been on here a couple of times. He's been going on his own journey. Let's take a look at what he says. You were nice enough to review my review 3 months ago and showed me how I was becoming disconnected by too long of arm swing and lack of thoracic turn. I have worked on becoming more connected, but feel my right hip is getting too high in the backswing, causing me to lock my right leg and lift my arms, killing my depth. All right. Oh, I see it already. Okay. First of all, let's just take a look at the face on to see if we're doing everything okay. Larry, have you been doing your stretches, Larry? Be honest with me. You're doing those hamstring stretches? Now, just to give everybody an idea, Larry's a 4 to 5 time golfer a week, and he's 4 handicap at TPC Southwind. So he's definitely a player. Great hand-eye coordination. Yeah, I see it here. Let's go face on. Yes, not as much as I want. All right. Just please, Larry, I promise you, you do those you do those stretches, your move becomes so much easier, because I still see evidence of it here. Okay. And I know it's probably not what you want to hear. It's like when I have students, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but when I have students that I see, once a week, and I say, okay, for this week, I need you to practice this. And then they try and just pack it all in the day before. And they show up the next day and ask them, did you practice? And they look at me and they go, yeah. I said, okay, well, how come I'm seeing the exact same thing? Well, I practiced until the very end. Hey, man, you got to do it every single day if you want to do, because we're just going to be doing the same lesson we did last week, because you can't move forward unless you cure this part. So make sure, Larry, come on, you got to do those stretches every day. Make it a habit. Even if it's just for 2 minutes, get down there and stretch those hamstrings. As you can see initially right there, I mean, your whole left side is locking up. You can see you don't get deep enough, obviously. So we could take a look at your centeredness. So if your centeredness is setting up pretty decent, so there's your centeredness. So it's not too far, slightly off your toes. Now, your toes are going to create an upright swing, and when you're on your heels, they typically create a flat swing. But as we take that club back, we can see they're already disconnected from that lower plane line. But your tilting's doing a really good job, though. You're still definitely maintaining your tilt. Now, this might be part of the reason why your left leg has to come up to allow you to maintain your tilt. And I know we talked about this last time, the tilting turn relationship. You can really only do that if you have flexible hamstrings and if you're flexible in your core and your lats. If any part of those is tight, your body has to give way to allow these moves to occur. And if your body is very tight and you're trying to turn and tilt, that left side is going to be like, hey, I'm not moving anywhere. So the only way to allow you to get some turn or excess tilt and maintain everything is the left heel has to come up to alleviate that stretch that's going on. And when the left heel comes up, what happens to your hips? Your hips collapse on that left heel. So now all of a sudden you've got this tilting going on and your right leg straightening out. So, and that's going to cause some issues. So look how steep you are relative to your center. So remember, it's all relative to the center. So there's that yellow. So there's your center in the green. So you're still fairly steep from this point. And if you go and look at your triangle check, when we do that in red here, we'll start to see that triangle might suffer. So in order for this triangle to work, those hands would need to move down immediately and then reconnect for the turn. But as you get that triangle moving down, look at that, the triangle's stuck on the right side. So you're still on your secondary plane line about 5 frames before you hit the golf ball. So there's really not much you can do. And I can see a severe loss of distance here because whatever rotation you do, whatever angles you carry over, you're going to lose them by getting those hands involved to play your catch up. And you can see you start to just throw what you can down at the golf ball. And your rotation isn't quite there too. So you really, Larry, your number one priority is, I know you love hitting golf balls, and I think we had this conversation last time, is instead of hitting 200 balls a day, hit 150 and then use that time that you would have hit that 50 golf balls to stretch, specifically before you hit golf balls. And you want to get the hamstrings. So look up any hamstring stretches that you can, because that's going to help you maintain your posture. Most amateurs can't keep their posture because we're not flexible enough in our hamstrings. And if you look at the modern times, where do we spend most of our time? We spend it in the car, we spend it in the office, we sit on the couch. We're becoming people of just easier lives where we sit and do less. So you've got to take care of your body, specifically at your age, Larry. You got to get those stretches in, because that's going to be your number one cure for this swing right now, because you can't quite get the turn deep enough based on your setup. So your body has to give way to help you. And then the only way it gives way is to start to do this motion instead of that motion. If you can just change it, 10 degrees, and 10 degrees isn't that much. So if you go to the top of your swing here, let's pull up the angle tool. Let's figure out what 10 degrees is. There's 10 degrees, right? So if you can get your hands to there, man, look how much closer they are to your center than being out over here. Out over here is very hard to reroute, specifically if you don't have a lot of turn. Now, you can reroute if you turn a lot and you've got all this room back here to reroute. But if you don't get your turn numbers up because you're tight, you don't have much room to reroute. Your left arm can only go so far back before that feels very uncomfortable. So, Larry, I hate to break it to you, buddy, but it's the same as last. Stretch. So I want you to report to me once a week via email. This is your homework, Larry. Tell me how many times you stretched. Tell me what you did for stretching, and give it a month and a half to 2 months, and really, really focus on stretching. And then to help you with your swing, you're looking for that left leg to stay down more because you have stretched that left side. You're looking for that extra 10 degrees of rotation as you take that club back initially. So once you stretch, you can also work on that too. Now, if you have a broomstick, a good way to use a broomstick is unscrew that little bushy end, put the broomstick in the ground, and just lean into it this way. So you're stretching that whole left side. There's so many things you can do to just help the basic stretches going on. But other than that, I hope that helps you, Larry. And that is it for this week. We went a little over time, but that's okay. And if you are interested in me taking a look at your cause and effect to help you, please send me an email, info@liongolfacademy.com. And face on down the line, please don't forget to include as much information as you can on your current ball flight, what you're looking to do. Your misses are very important for me. Do you have custom clubs? How long have you been playing? Do you have any injuries? All that stuff. Larry, I really appreciate it, man. That's just very nice of you. Thanks so much. And other than that, I will see you guys next week. Got some videos coming up. I am going to be taking tomorrow off just because I'm exhausted. But other than that, hope you guys enjoyed yourself. Have a good one. And I'll see you next time. Fairways and green.